Chapter 2. Again, the story, in spite of everything, at long last, really does get started. The Templeton twins, blah blah, very sad, etc. At first, friends and neighbors and students came to their home to cook meals, to help out, and to offer comfort, and the Templetons were very grateful. Then some time passed, because it always does. And while the professor told his friends that he no longer needed their help, he remained very sad. He could not bring himself to resume teaching or to get back to work on his inventions. He spent most of his time in his study at home, reading and sighing. Abigail and John, meanwhile, went back to school. They caught up with the material they had missed and took a test for which they had been absent. They each did pretty well on it. They began to see friends again and to do the things that 12-year-olds do. They also went back to pursuing their hobbies, which we will discuss in magnificent detail very shortly. During this period, it was quite common for the twins to not see their father at all from the time they arrived home from school until dinner. He remained in his study, while they were to be found either in the kitchen, making snacks, or in their rooms. And so it was. And so it was. Isn't that wonderful? This is something we don't normally say in ordinary conversation, but which I, as a narrator, am allowed to say without seeming strange or odd or weird. And so it was that after school one day, having enjoyed a snack of frozen waffles and honey, and having washed the dishes, the twins headed up to their rooms. While chatting en route, which means on the way, they decided to devise a plan to convince their father to get them something they had wanted for a long time. I refer, of course, to a dog. The Templeton twins had been asking their parents for a dog for at least a year. Now, the drama of children asking for a dog is as old as the human and dog race. I would not be surprised to learn that Cain and Abel, who, as you may know, were the children of Adam and Eve, asked their parents for a dog too. And I expect Adam said, "When you're older." And Cain said, "It's not fair." And Abel said, "You won't have to walk it or feed it or anything. We'll do all of that." Then I'm sure Eve said, "Well, think about it." And Cain said, "That means no." And Adam said, "You do not talk to your mother that way." And Cain said, "I'm sorry, but we really want a dog." And Eve said, "We'll see." And Abel said, "Please." And Adam said, "Drop it. We'll talk about it later." And so on, all of it in Aramaic or Hebrew or whatever it was they spoke in biblical times. This scene of Cain and Abel asking Adam and Eve for a dog is not in the Bible. No, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. Professor Templeton and his wife had kept putting off the matter by saying, "Yes, but not now. When you're older." This, as every child knows, is an outrageous and insulting reason for not doing something. And the twins were as indignant and as offended as you would expect. Then, of course, came the family's tragedy, and no one mentioned the subject for some time. Lately, though, the twins had begun to feel that a more normal life was returning to the household. So after the waffles, they went to Abigail's room to discuss the matter. They discovered, as they usually did, that they agreed with each other completely. They still wanted a dog. Abigail was sitting on her bed wearing blue jeans and a gray t-shirt. She had brown eyes and a long dark hair that she usually wore in a ponytail. She looked much like, but not exactly like, her brother. "I was thinking," she said, "if we just ask Papa the way we usually do, it'll be kind of tedious and grim." Now, if I were you, I would immediately think, just a moment, narrator. Do you seriously expect me to believe that a 12-year-old child would use the words tedious and grim in a private conversation with her brother? Wouldn't she be much more likely to say something along the lines of, "But, John, if we ask Dad the same old way, won't it be, boring and sad and stuff?" Normally, you would be right to ask that. But Abigail Templeton was, well, I won't say she was a genius with words, but I will say that she was very, very smart when it came to words. At the age of 12, You or I might not use the words tedious or grim, but Abigail did. John was seated cross-legged on the floor. He, too, had brown eyes and dark hair, although his hair was short. He wore gray jeans and a dark blue t-shirt. John, of course, was accustomed to hearing his sister using expressive words. When she made her comment, all he said was, "Really? Why?" It'll be tedious because it will remind him of all the times we've asked before, and it will be grim because it will remind him of Mama. John nodded, and then he said, yeah, right, wow, okay. Do you see, as I'm sure you do, and as I'm sure I do, the difference in the way the twins spoke? Tedious and grim versus, yeah, right. They were twins, these Templeton twins, but they weren't alike in every way. You will see more of this sort of thing as we proceed. Abigail said, we need an exciting and a commanding way to ask him. We need a way that will really get his attention. John agreed, and so the twins discussed various exciting and commanding ways of asking their father for a dog. John suggested writing a song about it. Abigail suggested sending their father a telegram. John suggested writing a note in invisible ink, lemon juice, which they would then miraculously make visible. None of these ideas seemed quite right. Both twins were silent in thought, and then John had an idea. We can't ask him in a way that we think is excellent. It has to be in a way that he'll think is excellent, he said. We need some kind of device. John said device in a manner that was just like the way the professor said it when referring to his inventions. It was kind of a Templeton family code word or private joke. Professor Templeton would come up from his basement workshop or arrive home from the university looking preoccupied and vexed. If the twins asked what was bothering him, he would say, I'm having trouble with the device, or the device isn't quite right yet, or even, I have come to believe that the reason the device doesn't yet work is that it needs a certain kind of device. Abigail now said, yes, great, and we shouldn't just ask for a dog in general, we should ask for a specific dog, because then he'll know we've really thought about it. In fact, they had thought about it, and they did have a specific dog in mind, and so they conceived and refined their plan. The next day, when the twins came home from school, they flew into action. Note here that I do not mean that they lifted off the ground and started zooming around the house. I mean they got very busy. Abigail dug out her desk drawer an old magazine with a photograph of the dog they both wanted. The twins had been carefully storing it for a year. She cut out the photo and pasted it onto a piece of cardboard. John, meanwhile, spent some time walking between the kitchen and the dining room with his head tilted back looking up at the ceiling. If Abigail was quite clever when it came to words, which she was, John was extremely clever when it came to doing things, to devising plans and putting them into action. His favorite thing to say was, let's do it and view it. He thought he had heard someone say this on a payphone in the lobby of a movie theater once, and John decided it was a good, brisk way of saying, let's try this idea out and then examine it and see if it works. Actually, what the person on the phone had said was, let's do it and then review it, but John misheard his snappier version. It's just as well, don't you think? Don't you believe, as I do, that things should be as snappy as possible? Oh, please. Yes, you do. John said it about everything, no matter how important or silly. Would peanut butter be good on pizza? Let's do it and view it. If your shoes had no laces, how far could you run before they came off? Let's do it and view it. On a hot summer's day, could you really fry an egg on the sidewalk? Let's, etc. Before you could do and view anything, though, you first had to figure out what. This meant that, in addition to figuring out what you wanted to accomplish, you also had to figure out how to accomplish it. That's what John did now as he surveyed the ceiling in the dining room and the kitchen. When he had successfully figured out what was what, he went to the garage and got a fishing rod that the family sometimes took on trips to the lake. He made sure a hook was attached to the end of its line, got a small sinker out of the box of fishing supplies, and tied that to the end of the line, too. He took them into the kitchen. What? What's a sinker? You're joking. Surely. Clearly a sinker is a lump of heavy metal, usually shaped like a big teardrop. Its only job, obviously enough, is to sink to carry the hooker and the bait, which are both usually very light, down into the depths of the water. Why? Because that's where the fish are. John, you see, was quite clever when it came to mechanical things, and connecting little thingies to other thingies and to various doodads in order to solve certain problems. In this, he was very much like his father. Abigail brought the photograph of the dog into the kitchen and joined her brother. Then the twins did a few other things, and voila! The device was ready. Questions for review. Number 1. When Cain and Abel asked Adam, their father, for a dog, and he said no, what was their response? A. Very well, Father, you know best. B. But Mom said we could. C. Please, please, please. Number 2. Which pair of words is most like the opposite of tedious and grim? A. Lively and cheerful. B. Lettuce and tomato. C. Lewis and Clark. Number 3. Is this it? The twins asked for a dog and the book is over? A. Yes, and I'm extremely upset about it because I want to continue reading, although of course I sympathize with the narrator for not wanting to write anymore. B. No, and I have no idea what will happen next, so I will happily continue reading, perhaps pausing for a moment to praise the narrator for his superb narrating. C. Maybe. I shall have to see if the pages follow are completely blank, or if they have printing on them. If they do have printing on them, I shall, without hesitation, proceed to read it with the greatest of pleasure. Let's read the little side note. Voila is French. You pronounce it voila. It means behold or there you have it. Other French words you may find yourself using in daily life include restaurant, turquoise, and France. Now return back to your Canvas page to see your next assignment.